Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to New York by night. The scene is set far from New York, actually, along the northwestern coast of the Golden State. In a little train station, a man sits waiting for his train. It's running rather late. Already it's now far, far into the early morning, and all of the other passengers to be have grown very restless. As the man looks across the tracks at a barbed wire fence, at the warehouse beyond the gravelly pavement, he sees the gravel begin to move, to shift ever so slowly. As music begins to play, a decayed hand begins to slowly rise from the gravel, and then another, and then another, as the walking dead begin to pull themselves up and slowly walk towards the fence, begin to pound against it. Or at least that's how it would go in a horror movie. Zombies are incredibly overplayed these days, thinks the man, as he closes his eyes and opens them again to see the empty warehouse and gravel beyond. You see, to pass the time, the man has been doing what any reasonable person would do when they are bored out of their mind and waiting for a train with nothing to distract themselves. He's looking around and how different scenes would play out if he was in a horror movie. And it has been somewhat entertaining for the past 5 minutes, but going on 10, he's beginning to get a little bored with it too. There's only so many things you can do. He's already looked at the rowdy family of five, the mother and father just sitting at a bench a few ways down as their three kids are running and screaming and jumping on the tables on the inside of the train station. They've long since stopped trying to route them in because they're just as bored as they are, and it's better to get them out of their systems now than have them running around on the train when it does arrive. You can already imagine what would happen if the light suddenly went out and then flickered back on, and then the children were gone. But that probably would be too much of a trigger point, and unless this was going to be some sort of new age crime drama, it probably wouldn't get a blockbuster release. He's already seen a group of teenagers go by, so sure that the train won't arrive by the time they get back that they've already planned to go to Denny's. As they walk past an elderly couple, one jack off bumped into the old man and had the gall to say, "Watch where you're going, you old geezer." It was all too easy for the man at that point to just picture the old couple suddenly look at each other and smile with pointed incisors and say, "Oh, yes, I think it's time for us to get a bite to eat too," and then follow the rude teenagers as the vampires have their revenge. But he's running out of ideas, and now that he's on zombies, he knows that it won't be too much longer before he runs out of ideas. And so he exhales. It is already. He's already anxious enough as it is. His end destination is not the town in which the train he's waiting for is headed, but the airport, where, with his plane ticket, he's going to go to the big city, the great city, the Big Apple itself. He has worked very hard these past years and has earned a scholarship to one of the colleges. This is a chance for him to make a career of himself, but it also means leaving behind everything he's ever known. He listens for a minute. He hears the sounds of the forest, the sounds of the Pacific Northwest. To the left of the warehouse, there is a little patch of greenery, several trees, probably a pond. Again, the wilderness is so commonplace here he is going to miss it more than anything, going from such a verdant home to such a large city. As he listens, a new idea comes into his head. Just out of sight, he wonders what could be there. And so his imagination takes hold again, and he hears the sounds of frogs and crickets. He imagines, as the brush clears, a grand party beyond for all of the creatures of this little thicket. A grand ball where frogs in tuxedos and dresses dance the night away to the orchestra of a 12 cricket band. It's whimsical, certainly something that he's not used to picturing in these times, but it does make him smile. Perhaps it won't be so bad going to New York. Maybe he's letting the stress of it all get to him. After all, just because he is going someplace new does not mean it's going to be bad. The beauty of the unknown is that it can hold both fairly and both equally fortune and misfortune, good and bad, joy and sorrow. But the shitty part is that there's no way to know until he arrives. And it's at that point, as he's closing his eyes, he opens them again just in time to catch something floating, seemingly from the sky, to land right on the tracks. Like somebody had discarded a wrapping piece of paper and just let it flow in the breeze until it finally found its resting place on the tracks below. Since he has nothing better to do, he does sort of get up and look to see exactly what it was that blew. He's got plenty of time. Maybe he can do a good Samaritan deed and pick up that piece of trash before the train comes and it becomes another permanent smear on the tracks. He's got the time. And it's as he walks over that he sees that the piece of trash is a lot bigger than he thought. And as the piece of trash slowly moves, caught between two bars on this track, he realizes that it's not a piece of trash at all. And as he looks harder at it, his grow wide for the first time as he blinks, thinking that he can't be seeing this. This isn't possible, as on the tracks is the largest spider he had ever seen in his entire life. It's it's so large it could be a crab, basically. But no, the long legs are unmistakable. It is it completely takes his breath away. This is something that he's never seen before in his entire life. There's no record of any type of arachnid that can grow to that size. That's impossible. And as he just stares down, gawking at it, a light catches his peripherals as he looks. And far, far, far down the tracks, he can finally see the light of a train coming. The light of his train coming. Thinking, first of all, distracting him from the impossibility that has seemingly fallen from the sky, he thinks, oh good, the train's finally here. But as he looks back at the creature that stays on the tracks, he realizes that it's not moving. It was before, so he knows it's alive, but it seems like it's stuck, like it's refusing to move, but it stays there. The train is at least 2 minutes away at this point. He does have the inclination to just leave it there, let nature do its course, but something distinctly human happens. He feels sorry for the thing. If this is not some sort of lack of sleep delusion that he's having, a spider that size had to have been alive for a very long time to grow that big, or at least that's how his logic in his mind is going. For it to get just run over by a train just because it happened to land in the wrong place is just fucked up. Even though spiders freak him out to no end, he takes the crutch that he's using to keep weight off his bad leg, and using his good leg, he leans down at the edges of the tracks. It reaches the crutch out to create a little bridge, like a person would use a piece of paper to sort of scoop this little, tiny variety of spider out of their house if they didn't want to squish it. And as he hears the train whistle for the first time, knowing that it will be arriving more sooner than later now, the spider very slowly pads the wooden crutch, and then, with a speed that would be normally impossible, crawls up it and onto his arm. And at that point, the man blacks out and suddenly begins to flail violently to get the thing off of him as his lizard brain panics. And he trips and falls square onto the tracks. The train's no longer a minute away. He can actually see it heading towards him now as the disorientation of his fall snaps him out of it. Luckily, he did not hurt his head, but he did accidentally break his crutch as he fell on it. And he does not have time to pick it up as, with all of his upper body strength, he grabs onto the side and hauls himself over the edge, rolling twice before he sees the train slowly come and crush what's left of his crutches beneath its iron wheels. None of the other passengers seem to have been paying attention to him before now. Some of them are looking at him very confused. A few of them get the idea that he might have fallen onto the tracks and just barely rolled out of the way, but the vast majority of them, like he was before, are just so damn pleased that the train is here. They just sort of turn off the rest of the world and begin to board. As the man is panting, realizing that he quite literally almost died by getting run over by a train. And then realizing that that fucking train totally ran over his crutches. And then, holy shit, where the hell did that spider go? He exhales again. This night just went from boring to worse. And so, with all the dignity he can, he crawls back to the bench where his suitcase is at. He lifts himself up, and using his luggage as a makeshift crutch, he begins to slowly head to the entrance of the train and board. It's going to be a long journey. The train ride will be scenic, but it will be long. But little did the man know, this Michael West, this man from Humboldt County, little did he know that this single event was just the beginning of a much, much longer journey for him and his yet discovered stowaway, as unnaturally large spider legs seem to just tuck themselves into the open zipper on his luggage. The train whistle sounds again and heads off into the night.